Hi guys, this is another video, in-box review video. Today I'm looking at the Bell P63A Kingcobra. The model we're actually looking at is the Eastern Express Bell P63A Kingcobra in 1/72nd scale. So as is normal, we'll move into the boxing history. The kit was originally released, whoops, I'll take that off, you don't need to see that. It was originally released in 1990, but it wasn't released under the Eastern Express label. There's a little bit of history to go through here, but it shouldn't take too much time up. The model was originally a TOKO model, and TOKO was a company set up in Russia that had their hands in an awful lot of different products. And they also had a plastic model division. The thing is, TOKO wanted to rid itself of the plastic model division, and instead of selling it off, the people who ran the plastic model division decided to break away from TOKO and move into another company, and I'll get to that in a minute when we get to the boxing history for that particular company. But original release of the P63A was in 1990. They also released two other variants of this particular kit, and the parts are always the same depending on which version you want. The parts are all included in every single version you get. This was the TOKO 1990 release for the P63C Kingcobra, which was the French Airforce variant. And in 1990 they also released the Bell RP63G pinball. Now there is an issue here because I think TOKO got the designation of the aircraft wrong, because I think it's actually a PR 63G pinball, and it was actually a target. I'm not sure exactly what it was, whether it was a target tug aircraft or a high altitude interceptor, but there weren't very many of them made, and it was one of the few variants of the Kingcobra that went into service with the United States Air Force. But that's the TOKO renditions, all three different variants. They're all released in 1990 simultaneously. Then we come into TOKO's 92 release. This was a reboxing of the French variant. I don't really understand why it was only the French variant that they reboxed, but the box is virtually identical, except that the Kingcobra designation here is, instead of being in dark grey, it's actually in red. Everything else is exactly the same. So 1992 went through from TOKO to the P63, what we call the green designation release. This, again, the box was exactly the same in 1994, but they released it with a green identification name on the bottom of the left-hand corner of the box there. 1994 went through to 2002. Now then, I need to go through a little bit of history here because something happened with TOKO models. In about 1990, whoops, I keep hitting the video there, sorry about that lads. In about 1996-97, TOKO discarded the plastic model department, and the company was set up under a different name, but it was the same people that ran TOKO's plastic model division. And the company was set up under a new name called Roden Plastics and Plastic Models Limited. And Roden produced virtually every single model that TOKO released, except this one. They didn't release the P63A, and we don't understand why they didn't release the P63A, but you could not get a Roden model of this kit for love nor money. But in 2002, Eastern Express released this kit in their moulds, and they released this kit in the P63A variant. Eastern Express, of course, is the other Soviet company that also bought up Novo kits, which are all the old Frog models. And I also believe that Eastern Express is, they have another name for releasing other kits in different boxes called ARC models, and I think they're owned by Eastern Express, but don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that they are. 2002 also saw the release of the French Air Force, this again by Eastern Express, and they also released the, there we go, the PR63G pinball instead of the RP, which it was in the original release. Now, it is a piloted flying target. That's what this aircraft was. It was a target. and I think it was a test plane that the other, like bomber streams, would aim their guns on and train their guns on, to train aerial gunners how to shoot aircraft down. And I'm pretty sure that this is the only variant that went into long-term service with the USAF. So that's 2002. We then go to 2010, and we have another company here. Now, I'm not sure what company this is, whether it's Eastern Express under a guise, or whether it's Rodan who released this kit. I'm pretty sure it's an Eastern Express release, but this was a one-off boxing of the French Air Force variant of the P63C, and it wasn't released with any of the other variants, so I think it's just a reboxing under Eastern Express that was released in 2010. Sorry about the quality of the picture there, lads, but you can't have everything, can you? Right, we'll leave you with this nice image of the P63A Kingcobra. This is an American markings. It was very interesting to note that this is an American markings, because the P63 only had a very short career in the USAF. The USAF pilots and the Air Force didn't like the Kingcobra at all, but it did find favour in the Soviet Air Force. But because of the protracted development of the aircraft, because it was developed from the Cobra, the P-39, it's basically an enlarged version of the Cobra. The aircraft didn't see service in the Eastern Front until, I would say, about late 1944, and by that time most of the aircraft were required in the Pacific Theatre on the Far Eastern air bases that were attacking the Japanese in the Japan Sea. So the history of the Kingcobra is a little bit it's misunderstood. A lot of people thought that the aircraft was highly utilised by the Soviet Air Force, and that just simply wasn't the case. The P-39Q Cobra was much more utilised by the Red Air Force than the Kingcobra ever was. But the Kingcobra was very much liked by the Soviets. They loved this plane. I just want to bring this camera round so that you can see the kit that I'm actually reviewing here. I'll just push this down very quickly. There we go. I want to put it up a little bit. Sorry about it. It's always the same with this. This camera mount it's great, but it has its limitations, doesn't it? Right. Now then, here's the kit we're reviewing today. The Eastern Express Bell P63A Kingcobra, and it's in 72nd scale, and the serial number is on the side there, 72140. There we go. Just want to bring this camera up a little bit more, because it's a little bit that's a bit better, isn't it? That's a bit better. Whoops. God, this yeah, I have to get used to this mount. This camera mount is testing. Right, just push this in. There we go. Just open the box very quickly. Not a huge amount in this kit, and I'll just take out all the plastic and put it in the lid like I normally do. Put the plastic down there because you don't really want to see me putting it all back in. We'll go through the usual gumph as we normally do. Right, first of all, the instructions. The instructions are, they're about half A4 size. A4 would make it this sort of big. But this is the other way up, so I'm guessing it's sort of around about A5 size. Nicely printed. It's nicely printed. There's not a huge amount in English. There is the useful advice gumph here. The tips. Actually, there is quite a bit in English. The optional language on the instruction sheet is actually English, which is quite nice. Directions for applying the decals, so you've got information on how to apply the decals, which is like teaching grannies how to suck eggs for most of us, isn't it? But the kit instructions themselves are quite easy to follow. They've got arrows to everything, to locate everything in the right place, which is brilliant. And when we go through the parts, I'll explain something else in a minute. But basically, you've got what looks like 10 steps. There's 10 steps of construction. You start off down here with the propeller assembly. Looks quite complicated, the propeller assembly. There seems to be 2 retainer pins for some reason, I'm not sure why. Step 2 is the interior with the rear bulkhead, bulletproof shield for the seat and the instrument panel, and the main bulkhead for the instrument panel to bolt to. Section 3 is actually I think it's the oil cooler that actually fits behind the pilot's cockpit in the upper section of the fuselage there, but we'll get to that in a minute. Section 4 is the main undercarriage legs. No, that's not true. Section 4 is a nose wheel oleo. Section 5, this is where things start to get a bit complicated with this kit, because Section 5 incorporates the main wheels and main undercarriage oleos. But you've got this part here, which is actually the entirety of all the main undercarriage door flaps in their closed position. And if you want the aircraft with undercarriage lowered, you'll have to chop all these parts up into their individual pieces, which are very clearly lined, and they're actually embossed on the parts as well, which is quite good. But you've got to cut all those pieces out to form the individual parts that make up the undercarriage doors in their various lowered positions, which is quite good. Section 6 is the drop tanks assembly there. Section 7 is where you put the fuselage halves together. And here's something which is great. They're actually telling you need 10 grams of weight in the nose. I would put a piece of lead in there because it's tricycle undercarriage. It's got quite a thick tail on this thing. I think it's going to need a substantial piece of weight there to get it all fitted in place. Cockpit assembly, which goes in here, the interior. That looks like a radio panel or plinth, and that's the oil cooler that goes above the engine itself, because the engine on the Kingcobra, like the Air Cobra, was actually mounted behind the pilot's seat. And then you've got the canopy and the side doors, which is very, very nicely arrowed as to where everything goes. Then you've got Section 8, which is the wing assembly. I think you've got to drill out some holes there for the drop tanks. Yeah, you've got to drill out some holes, which is quite good. There we go. These 4 holes here in each drop tank and 4 on that side. You've got to drill all those out so that the drop tanks in Section 10 can be fitted to them. After the wings are assembled, you put the wings onto the fuselage in Section 10. The main guns, you've got options here for either guns or a drop tank or both. I'm probably going to fit both actually, because the P63A was quite heavily armed. It was actually a fighter, a true fighter bomber, low-level ground attack aircraft in every sense of the word, and it could actually carry bombs here instead of drop tanks if they wished. And then the undercarriage is placed into position, and then you've got to put the nose wheel into position, which is there, and the main gear. Everything all goes in together, nice and easy. All the doors, all ID'd with nice arrows, which is brilliant. Now, we'll deal with the paint plan first. The paint plan here covers one variant, because there's only decals for one variant, which is a bit of a shame, because it would have been nice to have been able to build maybe 1 or 2 different planes, maybe even from the same theatre. It would have been nice, but there's only decals for one plane, and it's difficult to see exactly what squadron it was from. But here's the thing. The Kingcobra was integrated into the Red Airforce very late in the war, and at the time the majority of things that were happening on the German border were happening without the requirement of further aircraft and new types, especially new types that the Russians had to get used to. But they were still having serious issues in the Japan borders and the Far Eastern coastline of the Soviet Union with the Japanese. And this aircraft served the majority of its service life in the Far East Japan Sea Theatre. And this is where this aircraft is actually based from. I've done a little bit of research on it, and this aircraft is actually based in the Far East Japan Sea Theatre. The aircraft, it's not easy to actually see what colours you require to paint this, but you have got the numbers here, the Humbrol numbers. You've got matte olive drab 66, which is a specialised green for the upper surfaces. You've got interior green for the inside of the aircraft, and then underneath is neutral grey 176. Now I think 176 is like a medium sort of primer solio colour, and I'll probably be painting this kit in matte primer, the colour number 1, which is the matte grey primer, because that colour does give a really nice finish, and it's about the right colour. And the top coat is actually, I'm probably going to use a different colour to 66. I'll probably use something like I'll have to have a think about that. I've got a few different olive drab colours that I can use. I'll have to seriously think about which one matches the Kingcobra's colours the most. And looking at the picture on the computer I've got, matte 30 would probably be close to that, but that's not a true aircraft type. Right. One of the things this instruction plan offers is a parts plan, which is really handy, because on the sprues I've checked thoroughly. There are no ID numbers on any of the parts on the sprues whatsoever. So you will need this part plan to ID all the parts that you require, especially the ones that are like small parts, and if they're directional or starboard and port sided, you know, if they're handed or whatever, you're going to need to know what parts you're going to need to cut off and what parts you're going to need to use at the right time. So this parts plan ID is actually really important for this particular kit. And I did do a review a couple of weeks ago on a Kamov KA29 Helix, and I don't remember stating that that kit had no ID numbers on any of the parts on the sprue either, but that kit's instructions had a parts plan like this, and I am in the process of building that kit at the moment, and thank God it's got a parts plan, because the parts are really small and you need to ID them very carefully. So that's the instruction leaflet. One of the interesting things here also is that although it's an Eastern Express model, even the plans are TOKO models. Can you see that? TOKO models. So this is definitely a TOKO model. The original serial number was 112, but obviously this one's got a much larger serial number. So we'll pop those in there. We'll have a look at the decals next. Not a huge number of decals in this kit, but they're quite nicely rendered. Again, you've got TOKO marked on there. This is definitely a TOKO kit. It's took straight out of TOKO's design workshop and just put into an Eastern Express box. The red stars are quite nicely defined. There's some other little bits and bobs markings there, which yeah, you can read them actually. I mean, I've got a pair of size 2 glasses on here and you can read them quite nicely. The yellow, what would be assumed to be a BU number if it was an American aircraft in USAF service. In Soviet service it's in yellow. They're quite nicely rendered. You can see there, yeah, you can read those. The rendition on is really good. The register on them is really, really good. And there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of backing film, which is quite good. I'm quite pleased with those. They're not cartograph. The quality of the transfers isn't anything like cartograph, but they're not bad. Now then, transparency. It's all on sprue, which is nice. One of the things that I've noticed about this particular transparency compared with other Russian models is the quality of it. The quality of these transparency parts is really good. It's so good. I'm going to show you this instrument panel. Can you see the instrument panel there? It's actually a transparent part. And you can see every dial and switch on that instrument panel really clearly. And because they're transparent, a lot of really skilled modelers would be able to make an absolute fantastic job of that, because all the dials are transparent. But look at the quality of the side door. That is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's even got interior detail on it. That's absolutely amazing. One side's just got a door handle, the other side's got what looks like trim levers, and bit of boxing, all sorts. It's really interesting. And the actual canopy itself is a beautifully worked piece of clear plastic with a windscreen wiper and a frame. There's the back panel that goes over the rear bulkhead. Nice piece of work. I'm really pleased with that. Right, the plastic sprues. Here we go, plastic sprues, TOKO Models written on that. Is it going to focus for you so you can see it? It says TOKO Models anyway. And even if I turn this over, you will not find an ID number on any of these parts anywhere. But the thing I have noticed about these parts, yeah, they are reasonably pliable soft plastic, but the quality on them is actually quite nice. They're raised panel lines. The rivets are raised, which they would be. But this thing was flush riveted when it was made. There are a few panels that have rivets in them. I'm looking at the picture I've got on the computer, but the majority of the aircraft's rivets are flush riveted, so all those rivets would have to be sanded down, but they're quite small, aren't they? So I think they'll sand down quite nice. A lot of the other parts on this sprue are very nice as well. The actual way in which they've been moulded is really crisp and clear. The wheels, nicely rendered and nicely cast. I like the way this kit has been moulded. It's beautiful. Other parts there on the side. Not sure what some of these parts even are. Probably won't become apparent until you start getting into building it. But the other thing I've noticed about this kit is there is a little bit of flash here and there. But I'm not really a person who has an issue with flash. I think flash just tells you that the part's been cast properly when they were injection moulded. But there's no burrs, there's no abnormalities. The actual detail in the plastic is really, really nice. Very well done. So that's that sprue. The second sprue, as there's only two grey plastic sprues, gives you the main wings. That's the underside, which is a single part, and the two top wings as a separate parts to produce the top wing. Then you've got the tail planes. Again, you've got raised panel lines with quite a few rivets on them, but they're not that pronounced. Propeller's nicely finished. Quite a thick propeller, quite a big one actually. That's the internal interior of the aircraft. Drop tanks on there, which is nice. You've got a couple of separate parts here, which are the fillet, which goes underneath the tail of the aircraft. And I think that's the one that's used on the 63A. That's the one that's used on the C, the French variant. I'm not sure which one's used on the pinball variant. But the plastic parts on that kit are actually quite nice. I'm quite impressed with them. There's a few adverts on the side here. There's the two other variants for the 63 Kingcobra. And then you've got a Mark 1 and Mark 5 Spitfire and the Wildcat there, which is quite nice. Few adverts advertising their other kits. So that's the in-box review. I just want to go through the gumph. It shouldn't take very long. Right. Let's go through this very quickly. The model we're reviewing is the Eastern Express Bell P63A Kingcobra, released in 1/72 scale with a release date of 2002. On a serial number of 72140. There are decals for one version serving the Red Airforce in the far eastern front in the Japan Sea Theatre, and the kit comprises of 55 parts on 2 grey plastic sprues and 7 parts on 1 clear plastic sprue, giving you 62 parts total. Now then, the kit's dimensions. That's an interesting question because I've forgotten to do that, but it won't take very much time to do this. Sorry about this, guys. I just need to get my measuring tape out. This won't take very long at all. The aircraft span is going to be about 6.5 inches. The length of the aircraft is going to be about 5.5 inches. And it will probably stand about 1.5 inches above the ground on its undercarriage. So that's the measurements. Oh, I didn't do that. I should have done that before I started, shouldn't I? Right, options and costs. There aren't many options on this kit. The P63A was not an aircraft that a lot of companies experimented with. You can get it in 1/144 scale from a company called Crown. Don't know what the quality of this kit is, but regarding some of the other options that you could have bought from Crown, I'm guessing it wasn't too great, and they're quite an early release, usually in the early 60s. The Crown kit retails for about £5 to £7. In 72nd scale, you have TOKO in Eastern Express, which is the subject of this review. That kit retails for between £4 and £10. I think I paid something like, it was part of a stash purchase, so I think I paid about 35 quid for about 40 models. So I don't think I even paid a quid for this kit. It's also built by MPM. Don't know much about the MPM kit, but it does look half decent. I've seen some of the finished models on images on the internet. That kit retails for about £7 to £10. And the Aoshima kit, which apparently is an absolute howler, is £3 to £7. MPM also produces kit in 1/48, and that retails for about £40 to £45, so we're getting much more in money. And there is actually a real gem, but beware, it's a resin kit and not an injection moulded plastic kit, in 1/32 scale from HPH, and this kit is dear. It retails for between 100 to 120 quid. It is extremely accurate. The parts are extremely detailed, but it's an awful lot of work to remove all the parts from the blocks that they were moulded in and cast in, because it's a resin kit. Conclusions. The Eastern Express stroke TOKO model has nice mouldings, and it's reasonably simple instructions to follow. The kit is only available in a few renditions, and the TOKO Eastern Express model is certainly not the worst option. As to a recommendation, well, I think the jury's going to have to be out on this until I've built the model and shown you the reveal video. But the kit does look reasonably good, so, and as I said, it is one of the cheaper options. Don't know what the MPM kit is like, but it would have to be something reasonably special to beat the quality on this kit, because it does look quite nice. I'm quite impressed. So I hope this video has been of some use. If you like what you like, check out my other videos, give me a like. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Likes and comments are always appreciative, and if there are any questions, I always try my best to answer them as soon as possible. Subscriptions are really nice, very appreciative. I've had a lot of subscriptions added to my channel over the last couple of weeks, and I really appreciate the interest people have in my videos. So thanks very much, lads, and I'll see you soon with the next clip. It will probably be a final reveal clip, so I'll see you for then. Bye bye for now.